All right, this is just a quick tip kind of a video to kind of go over connecting objects that you might want. You don't have to shape something and to fill holes and problems in geometry. This is a question that I've been asked, and it might be easier just to kind of have a demo on this. So sometimes when we get when we are working on something, for example, the screwdriver example, where we have a cylinder and a ball kind of on top of it. So if we go into some of the resources that we've used. We have these. So this is basically like a cylinder. This is like a cylinder with a sphere on top of it. And if I don't want to have to model a sphere, I can just take two parts and then connect them together. Like there's a connection right here, and I could do the same here if I wanted to. And so with that in mind, I have two different objects. So I have a sphere that I just deleted the faces on. So I just took an ordinary sphere, create a polygonal sphere, and I use the 8 by 8 because it just reduces all that extra geometry. And so I have an 8 by 8 sphere that I simply just went into and right-clicked on it and and I selected all these faces just like this, and I just deleted them, not that high, this about this level. And I have no faces on the bottom, just edges right here. And with the cylinder, I just have a cylinder with 8 sides. So it's very important that it's just 8 units, components. Um, so just 8 and no caps. And well, I got rid of the caps. So when I have faces, I'm going to take that and delete it. And I just put a little extra edge loop in for support right here so it wouldn't just to hold the shape. Now, what I really want to do is just connect these two. So I have these two different objects. Well, right now, I can't connect them because they're not the same. So if I tried to do multiple things, so I could try to go, what I want to do is merge vertices or what's called welding or building a bridge of some sort. So one of the things we can do, I'm going to adjust the shape of this bottom object a little bit so it's a little more in line with that. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. So they're close. So I have to make sure I have my faces. So I have no faces on top. See, there's no faces there. I can look into it and there's no faces here on this. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to combine these two so I can actually join their geometry together. I have this little gap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to go up to Mesh. I'm under my modeling menu set, Mesh, and Combine. And when I do that, I get a new object, basically, Sphere. So I had these two, these no longer are there. Now I have this new one called Sphere 3. So it's really like a new object. Well, what this allows me to do is to blend or merge or connect these different edges. So let me show you a couple ways to do that. I could just say edge. One of the fastest and easiest ways is to double click on this edge here, double click on the edge and hold down shift, double click on this edge here. So I have two edges and they have to match. That's why this has 8 edges and this has 8 edges. It has to match. If I had 8 and 9, it wouldn't work. If I had 7 and 6, it wouldn't work. You can't build a bridge unless they equal the same number. So I'm going to then go up to my edit mesh. I'm going to go down to bridge. I'm going to open up the options box and I'm going to reset my settings, edit, reset settings. And what this is going to give me the ability to do is to connect or build a bridge between these two edges and this with a new piece of geometry. So watch what happens. There's the new piece of geometry added to my old geometry. So it filled that gap. And what's cool is I can add additional geometry to that if I want. I'm going to close that. So this object now has divisions. I can increase the divisions in that space if I wanted to. All right, so now I have a nice continuous flowing piece of geometry. So that's one way to do it. That's called a bridge. I'm going to undo that because there's another way to do this. And this is one that I use a lot too. So I have this object and I'm going to go into vertex mode. And what I can do is I can actually weld, and this is a little harder to do because this is a bigger piece of geometry. I can actually do what's called a target weld, where I can say I want to snap this vertex. So I can snap this vertex to this vertex. All right, and I can snap them together and weld them when I do that. And then they'll become one vertice. So what I can do is if I want to approach that, then I have to do every one at a time, or I could choose to use the edge. So if I do a vertex, I'm going to use what's called a target weld, and it's under Mesh Tools, Target Weld. And I'm going to double click on my tool because the option box needs to be brought up so I can choose the types of target or how I want it to merge. Merge to target means that I can merge this vertex. Now I have to make sure I align them straight to the vertices I want. So these two vertices over here, all these vertices need to attach themselves to one another. So sometimes it takes some practice. So I'm going to do it from this angle. So what I want to do is attach this vertex to this one, and this vertex is going to snap up to here. Watch. I'm going to click on this and drag it. I get this little target. Boom. Notice how that vertex jumped up there. Now watch what happens if I do it the other way. I'm going to go to this one, and if I said take this one down here, it would then snap down to there. Now, if I say target center, watch what happens. And this is the one I use a lot because I want the edges to flow. It will snap both of them to the middle, to a midpoint, which I use a lot. All right. So I can go around and then seam this up. And I can just kind of seam this up as I go. And I can basically, it's like sewing these pieces together. And then and you have to get some practice. Sometimes when it gets harder, sometimes I'll go into my object and look at it from the inside so I get less visual information. All right. So now see that one went up. That's fine. I can just take my edge and I'll just scale down in Y and straighten that up. And if I wanted to squeeze that in, it just gives me that really nice ability to combine that object. Now, here's another problem. One of the problems we might have is we have a hole. And so when we have a hole like this, when a face is missing, one of the things we can do that's real quick is that we can fill the hole with exactly that term. So I have to select the edges that I want in my scene, or that I want to fill, or fill the void. So these outline the edges of this geometry. So you can see that I have just the edges around the face selected. Now I have to go up to my mesh tools. It's under edit mesh. Sometimes they move these around on us all the time. And what I want is the fill hole, actually under mesh, fill hole, mesh fill hole. And when I do that, it gives me this nice face back. So my face is back. I don't have to merge or do anything to that. It's all good. Another way to do that is to say, well, maybe I have two edges that are separated, or it's too much. I could also solve the same problem doing the same thing I just did a second ago, where I select an edge and I extrude it up. I'm going to just move it in Y. So here I have this kind of loose panel. But because I know I can merge or target, I can keep I'm going to turn off that. I can actually use the same tools I just mentioned, the target weld, and I have an edge that I could actually weld an edge to an edge. Now, if it's going to meet in the center, it's going to pull out my geometry. Or if I double click on my thing and I say target, then I can say merge this edge to this edge, and it snaps it in, and everything is all back to normal. So those are really, really nice ways to combine geometry, and I would probably add something there to round that out a little. Okay, So that is a way to kind of deal with holes in your geometry and to build or to bridge. Uh, so we have combine under edit mesh, combine our objects together, select the edges that we want to build a bridge or what we want to target weld. And that is those are two very nice tools to work with. I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to you soon.